What's up guys, in today's video I wanted to talk to you about the Dutch school system. I'm going to explain to the best of my ability how the Dutch school system works, and yeah, I hope that you find it informative. And let's get into the video. So we start off with elementary school, which is 8 years. Then you have high school, which is 4 to 6 years. And after that you can go to college or university, which is usually around 3 to 4 years. So in elementary school we have grade 1 to 8. In grade 8 you make a test which partially decides which level of high school education you're going to do, in combination with the level that your teacher thinks that fits you best. So you can either go to VMBO, which is 4 years. You can go to MAVO, which is 4 years. You can go to HAVO, which is 5 years. And you can go to VWO, which is 6 years. Which level you go to depends on basically how good you are at academics. If academics are not your thing and you don't get the best grades, you will probably go to VMBO or MAVO. If academics are something that you're a bit better at, you'll probably go to HAVO. And if academics are something that you're really good at, you will most likely go to VWO, which as I said is 6 years. I personally do VWO because academics is something that I'm just pretty good at, and yeah, therefore I chose to go to VWO. In the Netherlands you are required to go to school until you're 18 years old, or if you have obtained a certain level of diploma. For example, if you happen to be very young when you graduate from high school, but you have the level of diploma that you need to get rid of that compulsory education, then you're free to do whatever the hell you want. But if you haven't obtained that level of diploma yet, then you have to keep going to school or some other form of education. If I'm being honest, I'm not quite sure how that works, but simply because it is quite complicated, so I'm not going to explain it any further because I simply think that I wouldn't explain it in a way that it actually works. On all of the high school levels, unless you do VWO because it's already the highest level, you can go a level higher. For example, if you finish VMBO and you want to do MAVO after that, then you can just do that. And if you want to go from MAVO to HAVO, that is also a possibility. But if you want to go to a higher level, you, I believe, always have to put on 1 extra year, unless you go from VMBO to MAVO, because that's the same amount of years. But if you want to go from MAVO to HAVO, for example, MAVO takes 4 years. And if you then want to go to HAVO, which takes 5 years, you have to do the 4th and 5th year of HAVO. And if you want to go from HAVO to VWO, you need to do the 5th and 6th year of VWO. You can't just do the 6th, because if you do that you don't have all the information that is required for you to take your exams, so that's just not a possibility. In Dutch high school you pick your subjects yourself after you've reached what we call the bovenbouw, which is basically the second half of your high school career. If you do VWO, for example, you have 3 years of onderbouw in which everyone has the same subjects, and then you can pick which subjects you would like to continue with and which you would like to drop. Of course, there are certain requirements and limitations as to what you can and cannot pick. If you do VWO, you have to pick at least 8 subjects. If you do HAVO, 7. If you do MAVO and VMBO, I believe that you have to pick at least 6 subjects. You can always choose an extra subject, but that's not required. The subjects that you can pick are kind of divided in 4 groups. Some of the subjects appear in multiple of the groups, some do not. Everyone is required to take Dutch, English and math. You can either choose math A or B. B is more with complicated formulas, and A is more like you get a story and then you get all that information and then you have to decide what to do. You still get formulas and all of that, but it is usually considered as less hard. But for example, I do math A, and for me math A is just as hard as math B is to someone with math B. It just depends on what type of math you're better at. After those 3 required subjects, it kind of differs per school which subjects are combined together and which aren't. For example, at my school I could choose between the 4 groups, and I choose E&M, which stands for Economie en Maatschappij, which is economics and community, so in English it would be E and C. At my school, if you choose that package, you have to pick history and economics. Obviously, in an economics and community package, economics is also required. Then you have a few groups within that package that are free choices. So in those 2 groups I chose business economics and geography. Another thing that is required at my school, unless you have dyslexia, is that you pick another foreign language, and you can then choose between French and German. I chose German because I absolutely sucked at French. So yeah, as I said, those packages kind of really differ per school. For example, my stepbrother has entirely different subject combinations than I have at my school. There isn't like a certain standard choice that everyone has. It just differs, and that's why it's a bit hard to explain. But the thing that is the same for all schools is that you can pick your subject yourself within certain restrictions, and I think that is really nice because, for example, I absolutely sucked at Math B, but because I could choose my subjects after the 3rd year, I wasn't forced to still do those exercises that I didn't matter how much I studied for them, I just didn't understand them. And because I could drop that subject, my confidence in math grew a bit, because the topics that appear in Math A are topics that I still find them hard, but if I study hard enough, I'm able to understand them better. Other subjects that I really wasn't good at and I really didn't like were chemistry, physics and biology, so I could also drop those subjects and pick history, geography and business economics, for example, as subjects that I do like and I am good at. So that is just really nice to be able to pick something that fits for you. And I have no idea whether other countries have the same type of system or not. But yeah, I really like the Dutch system because you can just pick the things that you want to do. And yeah, I've definitely noticed that in the 3rd year I did still have to do chemistry, physics, biology and French, and I definitely noticed that when I was able to drop those subjects and pick the ones that I did like, that I got significantly happier with my school life, simply because I could do stuff that I actually wanted to do. I also don't know whether other countries have the same kind of levels of high school, because, for example, in America I believe you don't have that you do have kind of classes for people who get better grades, but I believe that for the rest everyone has the same level. Again, I'm not sure, but I think that being able to pick the level that fits with you makes people happier, because if everyone had to do the same level, that would mean that the level would be too high for some people and too low for some people. For example, if you do VWO like I do, getting an A is really, really rare, because the idea is that VWO is on the level that people who are great at academics have, and therefore is harder, so getting a B or even a C is already pretty good. And so I think that by dividing high school levels like this, to give students more of an opportunity to do the things they're good at. For example, if you do VMBO, your classes are way more oriented on things like welding or woodworking or actually doing stuff with your hands. And I think that that is pretty good, because if academics aren't your thing, you shouldn't be forced to do them anyway. You should just get an opportunity to discover things that you do want to do and are good at. Of course, a disadvantage of this system is that sometimes I've heard people get bullied because they have a lower education level, but I have never personally heard someone say this to someone when I was nearby, but I do know that it happens, and that's obviously not something you want. But at the same time, I think that if everyone would go to the same level of high school, you would have people who get bullied for not being smart enough and people who are getting bullied for being too smart. So I think in a way that this system is, I just think it's pretty good. And of course there are changes that could be made, but all in all I think it works pretty well. And I can honestly say that I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to do VWO, because it's the level that fits me best, and I got really challenged, and sometimes it's really hard, but I like that challenge. And yeah, after high school you then of course have college and university. And Overall, whether you go to college or university and what level of college depends on the level of high school that you did. For example, if you did VMBO or MAVO, it is common to do a MBO study and go to an MBO college. If you did HAVO, it's common to go to a HBO study, and if you did VWO, it is common to go to university. If you do VWO and you want to do an HBO study, that's still perfectly fine. You can also do an MBO study, that doesn't really matter. But I believe you can't immediately do an HBO study after doing VMBO, for example, or you can't immediately go to university after finishing HAVO. In that case, you would either have to do another 2 years of high school to get to the high school level that is required for that college or university, or if you want to do an HBO study, you can first go to MBO and then go through to HBO, and if you want to do a university study, you can first go to HBO and then go through to university. And the main difference between MBO, HBO and university is, I believe, that in university, most of what you do is theoretical, so you don't really you obviously put what you learn to practice, but it stays more with the books and the lectures, whereas if you do MBO, getting an internship or something like that is way more important because it's more about actually doing the work, and with HBO it's somewhere in between. So as far as I know, that's the main difference between MBO, HBO and university. I hope I was able to explain the Dutch school system in a way that makes sense. If I didn't, please let me know in the comments down below and I'll try to answer your questions there. If you liked the video, please like it. If you want to see more of my videos, please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you next week.